Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special collaborative episode of Battles and Voices with Bright Minds Connected. I'm Lathika, and I'm the founder and host of Battles and Voices.
Hi everyone, my name is Smridhi Chanda. I'm the founder of Bright Minds Connected, and I'm so excited to be here today to chat about mental health, neuroscience, and the human side of healthcare.
Today, we're keeping this conversation casual. We're covering topics like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, PTSD, and more. We're looking beyond just the medical definitions to the human stories behind them.
I think one of the most overlooked parts of healthcare is the lived experience of their patients, especially their struggles, their triumphs, and their every day-to-day challenges.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's definitely one of the things that we try to highlight on Vitals and Voices. Basically, the human side of healthcare, not just looking more into the labs or medications that patients take, but it's about connecting with the person behind the patient. So the healthcare
Yeah,
profession, yeah.
I definitely agree. And Bright Minds Connected, our organization, also emphasizes community connection and it gives people a safe space to share their experiences.
That's wonderful. So, speaking of the organization, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about what Bright Minds Connected is and its overall mission and vision?
Sure. Bright Minds Connected is an organization dedicated to advocating for mental health conditions and to also provide health educational resources for people of all ages in order to help others learn more about this type of field and the knowledge behind mental health. Additionally, we also provide helpful information sources that help people learn more about different aspects of psychology and neuroscience for fun in our blogs and in our Instagram posts as well. And our mission is to allow people to connect with one another and bring in awareness for all people suffering through mental health disabilities, different kind of diseases, sicknesses, etc.
That's wonderful. So, could you kind of explain why you chose to focus more on the psychology and neuroscience type of connection between healthcare?
Right. Yeah. So I think like these topics, like overall, I think it kind of connects to like how like mental health is sort of like structured and organized. And plus psychology and neuroscience is definitely something that I'm passionate about. And I think people like tend to not know like so much things about like different diseases and different like degenerative like conditions about like different aspects of like healthcare. And I think that like just giving like the informational side of it, the psychology behind why things like react and like why things happen in a certain way is also important for people to know.
That's amazing. So, how did the idea for the organization come about?
Okay, so for a while now, I have like I said before, I've always been passionate about topics such as this, and I've always wanted to find some way to learn more about things such as neuroscience and psychology, since these are things obviously I want to study more into college, like in my majors, and I want to delve into more deeply regarding my specific career paths. And I also want to advocate for more serious issues regarding health problems and people's mental health, because I'm also passionate about that too. And I think that this struggle is all over the world, and it's such an important one today that isn't addressed as much in particular places of the world today because of the lack of resources and connection. This often occurs especially in under and near developmental disorders, but it's not just about my passion for these topics, it's also because I personally connect to the mental health aspect of it, which is also like why I wanted to start something like this. And I wanted to be able to make an impact by contributing to amplify youth voices. I relate to personal ways, and I've also seen this rising problem for mental health and its causes around my community as well. It's a serious global issue, and it also rises in statistics, and it's a common occurrence in most countries. Like I've researched before and researched in recent studies, it's shown that globally over 1 billion people are still diagnosed with mental health conditions today, and depression and anxiety disorders have reached over 250 million people. And these numerical displays are also like a significant problem, also what drive me to address an issue like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's such a important topic to talk about. So I did have one side question. So you did specify your specific career paths, and those are most linked to like neuroscience and psychology. So I just want to ask, what do you aspire to be after graduating high school or college?
Career paths. I know my mom is a psychiatrist, and I've always wanted to be like a neurosurgeon. And I've also looked into becoming a neurologist and biosurgery. So that's something I'm very passionate about.
That's wonderful. So what has been the most rewarding part of building the organization so far?
Okay, so it is still in the works right now because I just, started this like last month. But I was very proud of myself for taking the idea and because I was holding back for so long and now I finally had the courage to like be a risk taker and expand my horizon. So I'm proud of myself for taking the idea and actually running with it. And something that was really rewarding was the amount of recognition that I've gotten in the first week and I literally got like 100 followers in like the first 2 days, and I was so surprised with the amount of support that I received in such a short time. And because I recently started this campaign last month, I'm like excited to fulfill my goals and contribute to a cause that's been actively rising for several decades. And I'm very happy with things that are rolling right now and how they're proceeding. And I'm also learning how to develop more skills too, because definitely like starting this and starting the page and stuff was obviously new for me since I haven't done something like this before. And so I was able to develop more skills, obviously, because now I'm like the creative director of it as well. And so I'm trying to get better at making like quality posts and like providing good information for viewers who are seeing the organization's page.
Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations for hitting 100 followers in 2 days. That's such a
Thank you.
huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, for our listeners who might be interested in supporting or getting involved with your organization, what kind of opportunities might there be?
Okay, so for our campaign initiative, I will provide opportunities like soon enough for like obviously leadership and also volunteers to help engage with like some type of like service opportunities such as like online workshops and stuff that might be coming out like soon once I like start hitting the road. And also podcast managers as well because I am in the process of setting up our own podcast and also our own creative director too, to help make the posts and basically like general positions that you would see if you're like applying for like a nonprofit or like any type of organization. And this will allow them to get a sense of understanding on how to be like fully prepared, organized, and efficient as a responsible leader in something. Additionally, there will also be like general membership applications so people can be general members of it, and this will allow like me and with the help of others in the future to create more meaningful opportunities with the proper audience and engagement. So how do you see Vitals and Voices helping reduce stigma around mental health disorders among aspiring medical professionals?
Great question. So definitely, I think mental health is such a big, important topic in everyone's life. Mental health really matters in everyone's life, and it's not something that should be really overlooked because the way you feel is the way you act. If you feel like not good, you won't act like the way you always do. And if you're positive, you try to act good and yeah, I think mental health is really a big topic for Battles and Voices. And most of our episodes, I think we've done probably around 16 episodes. But most of our healthcare professionals, they're mostly experienced in this field. And they tell us, my co-host, and the other members of our organization, that, mental health is such a big aspect and they deal with burnout situations where they feel tired every single day, working 24/7 hour shifts, and then working daytime overnight shifts. And yeah, like to see firsthand how these healthcare professionals go through it and how they like are so powerful because every time you see them, it's just like they're putting a smile on their face. And I think Vowels and Voices really helps reduce the stigma around mental health. And yeah.
That's very amazing. I'm so proud of like how your organization has grown and impacted others, and I'm very, very happy to hear about that. And another question was, in your work with students and healthcare professionals, what mental health challenges do you notice that they face like most often?
I think they definitely face burnout and sometimes eating disorders. I wouldn't really call them eating disorders, not because they're like starving themselves, but because they have very limited amount of hours in their day and they can't really nourish their body enough. So I think that's something that I see most likely to happen in the medical field even right now. But yeah, that's two of the things. And of course, burnout literally happens everywhere. If you work too much, you obviously get burnt out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely two things I see when working with healthcare professionals and aspiring students who want to be in the medical field.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
So, shifting gears a little bit, let's dive into the disorders themselves. So, like for anxiety, for example, what do you think are the most common misconceptions people have about anxiety that you've probably noticed in your day-to-day life?
Oh boy, this is gonna be a big one. Okay. So some common misconceptions, and these are ones that I've seen like quite a bit. And so this phrase, I've actually heard this phrase from like classmates before, and definitely people like where I like around where I live. I can definitely say that anxiety is not just that. Anxiety involves excessive and constant fear that can interfere with your daily slash personal life, even when you're doing like the smallest things. It can even come with conditions such as ADHD as well. And additionally, and this is like a source that I quoted from, the American Psychiatric Association, APA, defines anxiety disorders as conditions marked by excessive and persistent worry or fear that is difficult to control and causes impairment in functioning. This is a more true and more accurate definition of anxiety, and it shows that it's not just an everyday phrase that like people use, like oh, I'm so anxious about like a test or something, or like my anxiety and stuff like that. Um, this is like an actual real deal, and it's like a significant problem that many people struggle with today. Another misconception that I've recently seen was that anxiety means that you automatically have a weakness or a flaw to yourself and your overall personality. This is also not true, because anxiety is a condition that is hard to interfere with, especially if the cases are really, really high for someone and it's difficult for treatment as well. And so it's not a sign of weakness, it's just a medical condition. Um, and so the National Institute of Mental Health also notes that anxiety disorders, they have a genetic, biological, and environmental risk factors and are among the most common mental illnesses in the US, affecting nearly 31% of adults at some point in their lives. Also, like others have quoted that, anxiety can be, the same for everyone, because everybody thinks that like anxiety, like it's just with common symptoms, and it's just like dealing with stress and stuff like that. But actually, each individual is different, and so they experience different things like differently with their symptoms, and this could include like physical needs such as like sweating, vomiting, and a higher heart rate, or with cognitive symptoms such as racing thoughts or dread. Research shows that like cultural, biological, and personal differences shape how anxiety manifests, and this is like a quote from itself, meaning that it is not a one size fits all disorder. Um, these are, of course, only some of the examples of overall misconceptions that have surfaced in the last few years and even more recently too, especially when people are seeing these common things in like school environments and work environments and stuff like that. And so, to conclude, acknowledging that anxiety is not just seen as a worry or weakness or something that's just easily controllable will help people like learn about this condition and its various symptoms more, without learning about it in the wrong way. And it's you have to acknowledge that it's defined as a mental health disorder with biological studies that back it up, that has many effects on the brain and a person's overall experience. Um, and anxiety, it has a lot of treatment plans to it, so people can also look upon that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And a misconception that you stated, I think it was about how if you have anxiety, you automatically are known for having a weakness or a flaw in yourself, and it kind of defines your personality. And I definitely agree. It's something that should not and will not, affect your personality. And it's really not a flaw because, 31% of adults go through anxiety at some point in their lives, and it's definitely happening a lot right now in the youth, such as like teens and stuff. So I definitely agree that's one big misconception in anxiety disorders.
Yeah.
So for depression, bipolar disorder, and PTSD, I think there's a similar complexity. It's kind of fascinating how neuroscience and lived experiences intersect.
Exactly. And eating disorders too, this can be backed up by culture, trauma, and just coping mechanisms also play a huge role beyond just biology.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I really love about this collaboration is that we get to show students and listeners that healthcare is more than just textbooks. It's about that real human connection.
Absolutely. I also think it's important to highlight the team behind the organization, definitely the volunteers, the mentors, and educators who make it all possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all about mentorship, inspiration, and making the unseen aspects of healthcare more visible.
That aligns actually perfectly with Bright Mind Connected's goals. How do you hope actually that this collaboration impacts listeners?
I think I hope it inspires students to pursue healthcare with empathy and curiosity, and it basically encourages anyone struggling with mental health to know that they're not alone and they will always have someone in their life that they can definitely lean on.
Personally, what motivates you on challenging days?
Definitely, I do have a lot of challenging days now that school started back up, and I'm like juggling a lot of leadership roles in my school and outside of Vitals and Voices. I think it's definitely okay to have anxiety and to have that burnout feeling. But what really motivates me on challenging days, I think it's just being able to be that light in someone's life and actually help them with anything, whether that be through mental health or just anything like school related or the podcast related. That's really what motivates me, just to be a light in someone else's life and help them or try to help them in that matter.
I feel the same, and especially with what you said about like being the light in someone's life, that actually really inspires me. And so also like I feel the same that like I try to motivate myself, get back
Hmm.
up and start thinking like positively whenever I feel
Yeah.
really down and stuff. And I feel like this is a reminder that mental health care, it's not just science. It's about actual like living human relationships and like understanding and support and lived experiences that shape who we are today and shape our minds.
Yeah, definitely. So for listeners who are curious about the neuroscience side, of your organization, what are some things you wish more people understood about the brain and mental health itself?
develops into something bigger and stronger is very like under noticed and misrepresented, especially with a lot of like vague like topics and articles that I see nowadays. And I find that sometimes people tend to say things like, you're fine, you're only just stressed, and like we all have our own problems and stuff. But when it comes to things like mental health, that's in like a distinct like category itself. It's not just like a typical like problem. It's like an actual like reoccurrence. And I've heard stories from my own friends who have received comments like this as well. And typically, when issues that are mental health related are just seen as like vague or like unproblematic, it can very worse for whoever's experiencing it, especially those that are the situation either ends up getting misdiagnosed, and this can also be harmful as well. Mental health is not something that is just used as a term for feeling stressed or anxious, even though that's also a part of it as well. For small life events and something that is only impacted on the short term memory, mental health can be a serious thing and can cause effects for a lifetime within different neurodegenerative diseases, like I mentioned before. And so, also, I think social stereotypes play a role in this, especially when parents think that teenagers, and I quote in parentheses, which have a huge percentage in our country of suicide rates and people who deal with mental health issues, they're just trying to make an excuse because they want to get away with things. But something like that isn't true at all. Overall, with mental health, it's really important to understand that the brain has so much complex functions, and anything can come as a diagnosis that affects the way your mind is able to think and coordinate, even if those problems start out really small. All ages obviously can experience mental health in various ways, and it's important to acknowledge how the mind works in these scenarios and to always take everything into account when you're visiting the hospital for a diagnosis.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So could you share one story or example where Bright Minds Connected really made a difference for someone? I know you're just starting out, but if you know a story or an example.
Yeah, okay. But okay, I can Yeah, I definitely can provide one. I have a friend from the community that I live in, and she actually like reached out to me personally. She said how great of an impact my organization was trying to make. She really liked the mission and the cause that I was trying to put out there, and it made me feel really happy. She commented on the positive sides of it so far. She really liked the idea of having a mental health based organization around our community. She said it had made her feel like a sense of hope and that she hopes the best for this in the future with our other advocacy campaign ideas as well. And so we've also gotten lots of positive feedback and recognition from other people as well. And a lot of recognition too. And I emphasize that as a lot, and I'm really proud of like where I am right now with this.
That's wonderful. And for students or future healthcare professionals that are watching this episode right now, what advice would you give to them about balancing the human side with the science side?
This is a very thoughtful question, and thank you so much for asking. I think it's very important to get at the very core of what makes healthcare impactful, meaningful, and also very challenging. I would say it is important to consider the patient as they're a human with necessities and cares about their own values and opinions, and to not feel discouraged when you can't please them or to not feel easily angered by them. It's important to not just think of them as like another diagnosis and just another thing that happened at work, connected to their environment, back from them when they're on medication and treatment. Patients and even healthcare workers often need to be understood from both points of views. It's important not to only know the science and terminology and the facts about specific conditions and clinical knowledge, even though like that's also very important. But what's also important is to make sure that the patient can be trusted with the healthcare worker and be able to abide by them and understand them in order to build good health outcomes. So basically, a form of empathy. This makes it seem more humane too, and not just only like science based, if you know what I mean. for students as well, they can learn from different role models, whether that would be a doctor that they shadowed or someone that they get a lot of insight from. Students can see how actual professionals deal with patients in a kind manner, being aware not to violate any of the standardized laws, obviously because of like HIPAA violations. And also in summary, while focusing like on the clinical and technical side of healthcare is important, it is also crucial to make sure you connect with patients and healthcare professionals in order to establish like a sense of unity and relationship of trust, which can make the process of recovery better. This will ultimately create an important balance of human and science and can ensure that everyone is safe, pleased, and encouraged.
Yeah, definitely agree. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I definitely love this conversation that we had. It was very casual, yet it was packed with information and insight. But yeah, thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you as well. I'm so excited. I was so excited for this collaboration, and I'm so excited for how it came out. It was very nice to meet with you today and be able to talk to you about these kind of things. And I really hope for the listeners as well that they feel inspired to prioritize human connection in their own healthcare journeys or careers in the future.
Yeah. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining on this collaborative episode of Battles and Voices and Bright Minds Connected. Remember, behind every diagnosis is a person, and connecting with them is just as important as understanding the condition.
Make sure you follow both podcasts, follow Vitals and Voices, and just an FYI, Bright Minds Connected podcast is still going in the works and it's going to publish soon. What we're thinking is Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to also follow the Instagram page, share this episode with friends and family, and stay tuned for more discussions highlighting the human side of healthcare.
We'll see you next time on Battles and Voices.